We are going to start with Epic Unreal, and thank you so much for being here tonight. It's honestly an honor.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to start talking about what we're doing at Epic Games. Who know about the game platform created by Epic Games, Unreal Engine? Of course. Great. Who play Fortnite? Who have kids that play Fortnite? So a few years ago, actually 2 years ago, Epic Games realized that some people were using the Unreal Engine for other things than doing games. And they have decided to create a team called Epic Enterprise. And we have a development office in Montreal where we're creating tools that are additional functionality on top of the Unreal Engine that is aimed towards people who do something else than games. There's things about architecture visualization, automotive design review, as well as sales tools and film and video and so on. My role at Epic Games in Montreal is a product manager that I work with the development team, driving the functionality that we add to the Unreal Engine to serve the architectural visualization workflow. So what you see here on screen is a demo that a client of us has created, Garou.io. They are based in New York and in London, and they are creating a pretty interesting platform to basically allow multiple companies to publish various content in their virtual world, if you wish. And all of the things that you see here were created with the Unreal Engine and using a tool that we're building in Montreal called Datasmith. So I'm going to show you a little bit about these workflow. So one of the problems that exists when you want to use a game engine is to get the data in from many sources, whether it is AutoCAD or Revit or 3D Max or Blender or SketchUp and so forth. So we are actually looking at that problem. For example, creating a scene like that, this scene has been provided to me by a company that specializes into marketing for real estate. It's called Neoscape. They are in Boston and New York. And they use 3ds Max as their main tool with a rendering engine called V-Ray. And traditionally, they were using V-Ray as a ray tracing solution to create absolutely beautiful imagery of buildings that someone wants to build and sell. And one of their challenges was that, how can you take a 3ds Max scene, for example, and bring this into Unreal without too much problem? And this is where we started to create a tool that lets you bring in data from various sources. So I'm going to go here. So we have started to create a bunch of plugins that sit on top of the Unreal Editor as well as on top of several applications. So for example, we have started with the 3ds Max plugin that export the entire content to Unreal and conform it to basically the need of Unreal. So for example, who is using game engine here as people? Yeah. There are requirements when you're using a game engine that you need, for example, to make sure that your texture are into a certain size. You have to create a level of details. You have to be mindful about polygon counts and so on. So we are creating tools that automate all this process. So designers should be able to create and focus on the design aspect, and then we take care of the daunting work of conforming all the data for real-time ready. So at this state, we have a SketchUp plugin, 3ds Max plugin, and we are looking at creating a Revit plugin as well, and potentially more. So we're talking about, for example, Cinema 4D, or also potentially Blender. No promise made here, but those are the kind of things that we're hearing that people would like to have. So just to give you an overview of where we are, a year ago, we started with about 50 users in a private Discord chat to test our technology. And today, we're around at 60,000 registration of our tech. So this means that architects seems to love it, and people who do design work also. And interestingly enough, we see a lot of people who do video games that are also interested in the tech. So basically, if you're creating environments and props and tools like 3ds Max, the technology we're creating on top of Unreal is just automating the process for everyone. So this is our team in Montreal, small office, temporary office actually. Who are we? We are a bunch of software developer specialized in the field of video games, but also in the field of design visualization. Many of us have worked in other companies like Chaos Group or Autodesk before. We also have a bunch of developer and tech artists that spent a long time in companies like Warner or Ubisoft, so they know the game technology and the gameplay aspect and the programming aspect inside out. And you know, we're all in the same room trying to basically create tools for people who are not video game developer to have access to this technology and do VR experiences like you're probably interested in starting doing. We have just made available a preview version of Unreal Studio. For those of you who follow the development of the Unreal Engine, we're up to the version 420, and we're releasing every 3 or 4 months. So basically, what's new now is we have a SketchUp plugin that allow you to export to Unreal. I'm gonna do a quick demo. Just checking on time, I have what, another 5 minutes? Ish, yeah. We're supporting also metadata. So this is getting really interesting for people who want to do sales tools for, let's say, real estate, or do inspection for, you know, training or whatever, because often you model things in a 3D platform that have meta information. So you may model a car and attach mechanical constraint properties to parts and you know, catalog number or things like that. So we carry this information out as well. So I'm gonna switch into quick demo mode here. Okay, so for example, let's talk about the SketchUp workflow. So I have a SketchUp model here, and basically this this model was brought in from the 3D warehouse that comes with SketchUp. So if you really want to get started in this, what is really cool is that you can use SketchUp, which is fairly inexpensive. You can use the 3D warehouse to gather a lot of free content and start to publish to the Unreal Engine in basically 2 or 3 clicks. So export 3D model, and you get to pick a Datasmith file, which is a file format that we have created to allow interchanging data. And then in Unreal, basically, you just click on this button, import, pick your model, and all the data comes in. Oops, I hit the, what happened? I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so all the data comes in as is. So we preserve the texture information, the materials, the color, the object names, and things like that. So essentially, if one of your hurdle was to get into, okay, I downloaded this game engine, which is free, by the way. You can go on, you know, epicgame.com and register for it and just start learning about it, and even use it commercially for free. But if your hurdle was to get the data in, and then you have access to students or artists that do 3D modeling in, you know, applications like SketchUp, then, you know, we think that we have solved this this problem for you. So the other thing when I was talking about metadata, so any architect in the room? Okay, your team is working on a tool like Revit? Yeah, so I'll show you something that is probably relevant for you. So basically, when you get a model from Revit, here we go. In this case, if we were to only import polygonal information, that'll be a polygon soup. But now, by carrying all the object properties from software like Revit, you can start to do very interesting interactive experience in VR. So in this case, what we have done is we created a little widget. Working on with only one hand here. We have created a little widget that extract these metadata properties from objects that I'm clicking on to start displaying richer information about the model. So if you think about VR experience and get data from external sources that were made by an architect or an engineer, you can start thinking about reusing this information in the VR experiences that you may want to create. The next thing is to prepare the data in what we call, we start to call, real-time ready or real-time friendly. So one of the challenge with CAD data is that often they're very heavy, thousands of objects, thousands of polygons, and then when you get in VR and you want to start, seeing this information with your headset, you have about 11 milliseconds to display, to draw everything. So this means that you need to reach frame rates that are at 90 frames per second or more. How do you get to that? It's by basically creating what we call level of details, trying to combine objects together to reduce draw calls and start to reduce the number of objects and so forth. So we are in a phase of development where we are really trying to focus our time into optimizing all that stuff automatically. So as a very first step, we are using Python. We're exposing Python in the Unreal Engine to allow you to batch process information and crunch stuff. So in the example that you see here, this golf bag has multiple display representation that the game engine will automatically trigger based on the distance. So as you get closer to it, we will display the high-res geometry, and as you are far away from it, we will display the low-res information. And it just looks the same because you're far, but we're swapping models on the fly to basically save time. And this is a very tedious process because imagine that you create this golf ball in SketchUp or 3ds Max, golf bag, I should have said, sorry. Well then, you don't want to model this 3 or 4 times. You want a tool that crunch the data and create level of details automatically for you. So those are the kind of things that we are working on right now. So as time will go, you're going to see that the Unreal editor becomes much more than just a renderer, but also a full 3D editor to create experiences, but also fix problems. So we have started to create polygon editing tools where you can select objects, delete objects, flip normals, and soon you're going to see that you will be also able to model directly in the engine and so on. So that's the kind of thing that we're bringing to the Unreal technology to allow people who are used to work in tools like 3ds Max or Maya or Blender or other 3D application like that. We want to be also at some point all-in-one package from some aspect. We're working on a Revit plugin, and so same principle. So file export, import, and all the Revit data will come in. So that's something that we have started to work on. I don't have any ways to demo it here because it's not ready, but this is the kind of thing that we're creating. And as a last moment, one of the really important things that we're learning from our customers is their, industrial designers and architects are telling us, it's great, Unreal is awesome, but man, it's complicated. So designers are not programmers. So this is actually a statement that one of our customer told us. So we are going to make some steps to make it easier and easier for, people who are less development oriented, let's put it this way. So we are looking at creating tools and templates. So in our view, you should be able to drag and drop a few things on the door and have it to open automatically, and not have to program a lot of blueprint code or C# code to start to interact with your things. So it's really the mandate of our team and the enterprise group to basically make the technology that is great for AAA games like Fortnite more approachable for smaller group of people. Here's an example of a prototype of a dimension tool. Because we want to be effective for people who use Unreal as a design tool. So of course, if you start to think about design review, you get into dimensioning and querying and so on. There is another example here where we started to look at non-photorealistic display. So for example, what if you're interested into a conceptual design phase where you don't want to be bothered about the color of the carpet or the brick? So we're thinking about easy ways to create NPR or non-photoreal display as well to let you communicate idea. And finally, this is actually a template that is in the product now. Out of the box, you create a project, you import your data from SketchUp or a mechanical CAD like SolidWorks or Rhino or else, and you hit play, and right away you have all the tools built in to let you manipulate the data, inspect it, turn it into X-ray, isolate it. So we're actually making some steps to be much more easier to use, and all of that functionality is part of the product as open source. You can crack open the way it's done, you can change it, you can use it in your own projects and so forth. So those are the kind of things that we're focusing on in the Montreal team for enterprise. Thank you. If you have questions, I don't know if we want to spend time for a question here, but we'll be around. We'll be at the after party, of course, and we are also at the AIA show. So there's one architect in the room. You can come and see us at AIA tomorrow or Friday if you want. So.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do questions afterwards. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.